Hello, everyone. Back to another edition to the Boeing Podcast. Everybody's doing well on this Wednesday evening. A lot to get into. We got the MLB wildcard race, which I'm really going to dive into off the top, which is certainly interesting. Talk about the Monday Night Football game. Talk about some interesting developments in the NFL world today. Touch on some hockey, perhaps. NBA news that I didn't get to on Monday, where going forward, I'm going to be trying to do 2 podcasts every Monday. So just some housekeeping notes. Going to be doing an NFL show and then another show with NHL news, with everything else in the world of sports, especially with the MLB playoffs starting next week. NHL starting up 2 weeks from yesterday. So a lot happening in the world of sports, and with the NFL, it just takes up, when you have an hour, I try to keep them to an hour-ish. It takes up a lot of time. So we'll try to do two podcasts on Mondays. Seamus and I had some problems yesterday, technical difficulties, internet being the proverbial bitch. But we are going to record our Breaking Bad podcast tomorrow. Also, tomorrow I'll be recording with Ben Murray. We'll talk about week 4 in the NFL. He's a big Patriots fan. We'll dive into the Patriots Buccaneers matchup that we will see this weekend at Gillette Stadium. We'll also dive into a lot of the big games, the NFC West, everything around the world of sports. Friday, I'll be podcasting with my buddy Harry Schutenbeld. He's normally on here to talk about basketball. He reached out. He wants to do a podcast about week 4 in the NFL, but also we're going to focus on betting. He has his own platform called Sports Make Moolah. You can check that out on Twitter. So he's going to be we'll talk about all the lines of the games. He'll give his insight on the season so far. Always fun getting to podcast with Harry. He's got great energy, and we'll record that sometime on Friday. So stay tuned for that. And then Saturday morning, I'll be podcasting with Matt Wright, where we're going to talk about a lot of college football, because this weekend it's one of the best. It's stacking up to be one of the best college football weekends in recent memory, where Arkansas, I told you they should be ranked in the top 10. They are. Thankfully, the committee finally got something right. They are ranked number 8. They're going to be playing number 2, Georgia. Georgia should be number 1 because they have looked better than Alabama through 4 weeks. But nevertheless, battle in the SEC. We got Georgia versus Arkansas. We'll touch on that game. We'll touch everything from that matchup. Ryder's a big Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan. They are undefeated, but every week they just continue to slip by. They have Cincinnati coming to town. Cincinnati is a team that this is a big matchup for them. If they win this game, their chances of getting into the Final Four are real. If they lose this game, they're done. Even with a loss, a Cincinnati team is never going to get respect from the committee. An Ohio State team that's looked pretty inferior so far would get higher ranked than them. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's just how the college football committee works. So he's a big Notre Dame fan. Cincinnati's look good. Desmond Ritter's on the NFL watch list at quarterback. We got Kyle Hamilton, who I'll talk about a ton, who players you should watch out for in this Notre Dame game. Most of them are defensive players because offensively they're challenged. We also got Alabama, Ole Miss. Alabama, heavy favorite, playing Nick Saban playing one of his former assistants in Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, where Matt Corral has looked fantastic to start the season. Ole Miss ranked 14th right now. Can they pull off the upset? But there's also, we're going to talk about Penn State, about how I believe they're the best team in the Big Ten. You could say they should be ranked inside the top 4. We'll talk about Clemson going down last weekend. And just a lot of college football talk. We'll also talk, he's a Patriots fan as well. So we'll dive into the weekend of the NFL. But so three different podcasts with guests over the next couple of days. And actually, with my schedule, this is episode 197. So the podcast with Ryder will be episode 200. So 200 episodes up to the point. It's exciting for me. When I started last November, I didn't know if anybody would listen to me. And for everybody that has so far, I appreciate it. I hope you continue to do so. And I only plan to get better here on To The Point. But that's what's coming up. And we'll get next week. I already told you about the NHL preview show. Might do something with Craig Eagles down the road as we get back into the swing of the hockey season. So more and more coverage coming your way, and hopefully we can do that coming up. So that's all exciting stuff. But when we get back to the world of sports, coaches and managers, their roles seem to be changing in the last 5 to 10 years. They're less about X's and O's and more about motivating, more about, clock management in the NFL, or when to make a pitching change in baseball, or in hockey, when do you pull a starting goalie, or who do you put in as your sixth defenseman? Little things like that. Less about how can we, divvy up a plan to beat this team. And in baseball, the skip, when is it time to pull the starting pitcher? In the past 5 to 10 years, advanced analytics has taken over the game of baseball. It has gone from, let's let our starter throw 9 innings, 120 pitches, to we're going to let him pitch 5 and pitch, and he'll get to 90. He's done for the day. And, numbers tell us that this pitcher will be able to pitch longer in his career. He'll have a longer career. His arm won't be dead. He's less likely to have Tommy John surgery. So we accept that. And we see today the really great pitchers go 6, 7 innings. Walker Buehler, who I believe him or Max Scherzer will win the NL Cy Young, went 7 innings last night. Scoreless ball. But in the olden days, you're seeing the greats go 9 innings. Just the way it wasn't a question. John Smoltz in his heyday in Atlanta was not going 7 innings. He was going 9, and whatever happened after the fact. That's just the way it worked. But in today's game, it's about rest, recovery, days off. And in the Toronto Blue Jays case, Hyunjin Ryu is a guy that needs a lot of upkeep. The big signee of 2 years ago has been a good, not great pitcher in Toronto. Last season, gave them everything they paid for. 4 years, $90 million. Pitched every start, 30 plus starts, no injuries. But he gets to the playoffs, game 2 against the Tampa Bay Rays. He gets blown up, pitches an inning in a third. When you needed him in the biggest moment, he wasn't there. His second season in Toronto hasn't gone as great. After a great regular season in year 1 in a shortened 60-game season, he has been inconsistent. He's been injury prone, and he's been getting balls hit into the yard far too often. So when he was placed on the injury report last week, and it was told over the weekend that they announced their starters that Hyunjin Ryu was going to come off the injured reserve and pitch in the Blue Jays' biggest game of the season, it should have been a quiet confidence. It should have been great. We have our ace on the mound. But just 2 years into a tenure, that state has changed. And last night, the Toronto Blue Jays threw him on the mound. And I don't look at Hyunjin Ryu, even though he lost the start, I don't view last night completely on him. If you look at his start in the Blue Jays' loss, he went 4 2/3. He should have went 4 1/3. Because what happened? He gives up a solo home run to Judge in the third. No problem there. Gives up an earned run. I can deal with that. But we go in the top of the 5th. He gives up a single to Giovanni Urshela. Then he walks DJ LeMahieu. Who's coming up but Anthony Rizzo? First 2 at-bats, singles, and got a great defensive play by Bo Bichette, erased a single. So you could arguably say he should be 2 for 2. But let's bring Rizzo on the mound. Okay, to me, Charlie Montoyo, this is your time, buddy. Remove him from the game. Who did he bring in that only pitched a third of an inning last night? Adam Simber. Adam Simber has been one of the most consistent pitchers in the Blue Jays bullpen this season. And he brought him in and only pitched a third of an inning last night. He didn't pitch the 6th, which did not make any sense to me either, but we'll get there. He doesn't bring in Simber. He lets Ryu, who has been a disaster, as I just documented, in his start previous to this one, went 3 innings, giving up 6 earned, was on the injury reserve from fatigue or shoulder or whatever the hell it is. He wasn't pitching. And 2 guys on. You're up by a run. The bats weren't exploding. If you watched the game last night, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. might as well not shown up. Wasn't involved in the game. The only one guy I could say really had a great night was Bo Bichette. He was locked in last night, got to his 99th RBI. But you're in a position, let's survive here. Jamison Tylon for the New York Yankees, their starting pitcher, was out of the game. He left after 2 1/3 because of an injury. Michael King was in the game. You had got to him in the previous inning. But no, Charlie Montoyo leaves Ryu in the game. And I never heard about this talk tape. I think this was a tactical error. Because he lets him face Rizzo. And Rizzo fights off the at-bat and gets a bloop single. And they throw the ball in from left. It hit Urshela right in the ass. He crosses across the plate. We're tied. You could say maybe the throw would have gotten home. Well, guess what? We don't know because it hit him right on the ass cheek. He came in to score. Then, only then, does he pull Ryu. The next at bat, Aaron Judge, sack fly, scores DJ LeMahieu, makes the game 3-2. The Blue Jays never led again. They weren't involved in the game again. They did not score another run. Ryu he had gone 4 1/3. To me, that's a win last night. After coming off the IR, after seeing what he's been pitching like over the past number of days, getting him a 4 1/3 inning is a victory. You accept that. You move on. You go to your bullpen. If you feel like Adam Simber needs to get you out of a tough situation, which I don't necessarily disagree with, let him pitch against Rizzo and then face Judge and then Stanton, the next guy up. Let him do that because he's far too valuable to waste after they've tied the game, and that he did not pitch after the fact. 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. He never pitched. He's one of their highest leverage relievers. Removing Simber from the bullpen that made them have to put Trevor Richards into the game. What happened to Trevor Richards in the top of the 7th, you might ask? Oh, okay. How about you walk DJ LeMahieu? And then you walk Aaron Judge. And then Giancarlo Stanton hits a home run to Mars. Ball game. 6-2. Gio Urshela hits a home run in the 9th for good measure. And the Blue Jays drop one last night to the Yankees. I'm not a Blue Jays fan. But when I see poor management, it's impossible not to point it out. Like, if you're a Cowboys fan, which I'll get to in this podcast, you should be happy with the Cowboys. You got a really good team. What I would be concerned with is your head coach who doesn't know clock management and doesn't make the right timeout calls to put your offense back on the field 2 weeks in a row. That would concern me. But Charlie Montoyo, you have a really good young team. Ross Atkins and forget his name now. He's the president of the Blue Jays. My apologies. Name slipping my mind at this point. Mark Shapiro. They run it. We know they have, a hand up your ass and you're just a ventriloquist dummy. But you're in there. You make the decisions of who goes in, who doesn't. Ryu should have came out. And this isn't hindsight 2020 to me. I was watching him and said Rizzo's gonna get a hit here. It was just so you can sense it. In the at-bat with Richards against Stanton, just that whole inning, you saw the walk, then you saw the walk, and you let Richards face Stanton as well. Like, come on. Last night you had 6 games remaining. You're in a dogfight to get to the playoffs. And you know me on this podcast, there are no moral victories in sports. The Cleveland Browns, you could say have a moral victory. They could still look at that game, week 1, the loss to the Chiefs, and say, We should have effing had that game, but you blew it. And last night's game, the Blue Jays could have won it. Yes, their bats were quiet. I realize it, but maybe you can pitch the rest of the game, not giving up any earned runs. Because if you throw, I would have pitched Simber another inning myself. That's just how I would have approached the game. Adam Simber is one of their best. He's a high leverage reliever. He should be in there in the 7th or 8th inning, or he doesn't pitch. And if you had to pitch him in the 5th last night to get out of a jam because you felt like your bats were quiet, I'm fine with that. But let him pitch an inning in 2/3. That's not going to kill him. Because you go to Nate Pearson. Okay, great. Simber could have pitched the 5th inning. Then you go to Pearson. Then you go to Merriweather. Then you go to Romano to close out the game. Instead, you had to go to Trevor Richards because you. And the Blue Jays have 5 games. They now trail the New York Yankees by 3 games for that first wildcard spot to host the wildcard game. Now, last night could have been way worse, but the Boston Red Sox just seem to want to do the Blue Jays a huge favor here. They lose to Baltimore. They had 6 games remaining. Baltimore's the worst team in baseball. Since the trade deadline, the Washington Nationals are the 2nd worst team in baseball. You should win 6 out of 6. Okay, the other team shows up too. What? The other team is basically a AA. You should win. You want to make the playoffs? Win those games. So the Blue Jays Charlie Montoyo got thrown a bone last night from the Boston Red Sox, who laid an egg against the Orioles. However, what the Blue Jays don't have the luxury here is they are 3 behind the Yankees with 5 games remaining. You need to win these next 2 games for sure and beat Baltimore all 3. What Boston still has is they have 5 games remaining, 2 against Baltimore, 3 against Washington. They should win those 5. And if you're chasing Boston and they win out at this point, you can't catch them. It's impossible. You're down by a game. And also last night, who comes back? Seattle's now in the mix. I kind of forgot about them. They played Monday night. They played last night against Oakland. They win that game. Seattle surpassed the Blue Jays. They are now a half game behind Boston for that final wildcard spot. So they're in it with 4 games left. 1 against Oakland tonight and then 3 against the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim this weekend. But so you lose the game last night for the Blue Jays, and this is why it's even worse. Who do you got tonight? Brios, that's fine. Good pitcher, the Jays. Who's the Yankees throwing out? Oh, Garrett Cole. This is your biggest game where it's problematic because he's one of the best pitchers in baseball. Yeah, you got to him last time, but you don't think he's going to be better tonight? I do. So I look at the Blue Jays and just say, if Charlie Montoyo wants to be their manager long-term, because they believe in this core, that they could win a World Series. You got Vladdy, who's the MVP candidate. Bo's, going to get to 100 RBIs, got 99 in the season. You got Teoscar Hernandez, who actually leads the team in RBIs. Marcus Semien, you can open re-sign. Robbie Ray, like you're going to win a Cy Young. Okay, great. You can have all those statistics. But if you don't make the playoffs for the last 5 games this season, a lot of it's irrelevant. A lot of it. Vladdy getting in shape, that's not irrelevant. That can carry over. Bo improving slightly defensively. I still think he's a liability at short. But you see his stroke getting better. He's good with the bat. So you can take that going forward. Take those 2. But Simeon's season is a wash if he walks. And I don't get a good sense from the Blue Jays that they're going to pay him. So his 43 dingers, that's a wash. Great for him. Gets him a payday. Doesn't do anything for your organization. Robbie Ray, Cy Young. Only means anything if he returns. Are you going to divvy up the money for him? Remains to be seen. But again, if he has a Cy Young season and your team doesn't make the playoffs, it's worthless. Shohei Ohtani's MVP likely season is a complete malaise because he's in Los Angeles. He's playing for the Angels. They're not even close to the playoffs. Mike Trout's been out since mid-May. They've been out of it since day 1 of camp, the Angels. So The only reason they're relevant is because of Shohei Ohtani and because he's a unicorn. But does his MVP season do anything for that organization to make people want to go play there? I doubt it, because they've had the best player in baseball for the past decade, and they don't sign any pitching, and they don't make the playoffs. And Mike Trout has won 0 playoff games over the course of his career. 0-3 in the divisional round that he played in. Only making playoffs once in his career. So they got 5 games to rectify this, and it starts with the Yankees are 3 up on them. It's going to be tough to catch the Yankees, even though they play the Rays 3 times this weekend, but I think the Rays will be nailing in a bit. But you need to win these next 2. Tonight is a must win. Win tonight and see what happens. You got Jose Barrios. You were traded to play in big situations. This is it. So I'll see what happens tonight. But Charlie Montoyo, I blame last night for that game, because he mismanaged how he took Rio out of the game, and then mismanaged his bullpen and what arms to put at certain times of the game. But you talk about big pitchers showing up in big moments. For the Tampa Bay Rays, Charlie Morton was a pitcher that was really just there. They had Tyler Glasnow. They had Blake Snell. Charlie Morton was a great number 3. He was a guy you could throw in game 3 of a series and he'd give you good innings, a solid veteran. But in typical Tampa Bay Rays style, he was out of their price range following last season. So Charlie goes to Atlanta. Atlanta having a tough year. Losing Marcell Ozuna, their everyday left fielder, to domestic violence. He's got some real problems, could possibly see some jail time. You lose Ronald Acuna Jr. to a torn ACL in July. Losing your best player, your best fielder for the remainder of the season. Doesn't sound like a really good day for Atlanta. And then before the season starts, you lose the big Canadian who tears his Achilles for the second straight year, starting pitcher who was a finalist for the Cy Young 2 years ago. So you're without 3 regulars, 3 really important pieces to your lineup. But you battle through the whole year. Max Fried gets better as the season goes around, their pitcher. Ian Anderson got better after a slow start. Freddie Freeman found his game. And you battled. But now we go ahead and look. Charlie Morton, again, under the radar. But last night they're playing the Philadelphia Phillies in the biggest series of the year for them. They have a 2.5 game lead. But Charlie Morton takes them out against Zach Wheeler, who's been a fantastic pitcher for the Phillies, formerly the New York Mets. So a pitching duel with 2 of the best pitchers, you could argue, in baseball. Morton, he'll never have the fanfare, but he went 14-6 this season at 38 years old. Pretty good. Wheeler, 14-10 for a Phillies team that couldn't score any runs beginning of the year, so he could be better. But Charlie Morton, in a huge game, division game, you up 3.5 game lead if you win last night, goes 7 innings, 0 earned runs, and 10 strikeouts. A rock star performance, striking out Bryce Harper twice. Bryce Harper, who's been on fire, batting over .340 since mid-August, an MVP favorite now in the National League, struck him out. Didn't allow a hit last night to Bryce Harper, and just a fantastic performance. Martin only allowed 3 hits, 3.39 ERA for the season. But you look at it, he was fantastic. Zach Wheeler wasn't bad either. He went 7 innings, 4 hits, 2 earned, 7K. But last night it was Morton who was just a little bit better. Luke Jackson pitched in the 7th inning. He did his thing. He's been fantastic this year with a 1.90 ERA. And Will Smith was able to survive it, giving up a run. But Atlanta holds on to beat the Phillies 2-1. And they now have a 3.5 game lead in the NL East with 5 to play. So 3.5 game lead. They play each other 2 more times, but the Phillies are in dire straits right now. They need to win games. But you look at it. The Rays are still going to make the playoffs. I'm not saying they've done anything wrong, but their starting pitching depth is not as good as it once was. The Braves having a Charlie Morton this time of year is huge. To throw in a game like this, to trust him, because he's been there, done that. He's pitched in the World Series. He's pitched in high leverage games. He's not afraid of the moment. And you forget about Charlie Morton for the whole year. But in that moment where you need him to close the door on the Phillies and just for them to give up hope, he does it. Charlie Morton is a lot like Adam Wainwright. Now, Adam Wainwright may go to the Baseball Hall of Fame. He's that good, winning a World Series, being just a great pitcher, being at 40 years old. But Adam Wainwright is a guy that, had some off years, but at 40, having one of the best season he's had in 5 years in St. Louis. And for the longest time, it's like, well, are they going to trade Wainwright? Will they trade Yadier Molina? But the Cardinals, like the Braves, they were dead. They were never going to make the playoffs. But last night, they beat Milwaukee for the 5th time in 8 days, who are first in that division. They cannot catch them. There's not enough games left, but they've won 17 in a row, the St. Louis Cardinals. In beginning of August, if somebody would have told me the St. Louis Cardinals are going to make the playoffs, I'd say you're crazy. It was either going to be Cincinnati, who's in the driver's seat at the time, or San Diego. But St. Louis just chipped away. And led by guys like Adam Wainwright and still veterans like Paul Goldschmidt and Yadier Molina and Tyler O'Neill, the Canadian. This team is clinched the second wildcard spot. They will be playing either the Los Angeles Dodgers or the San Francisco Giants in the wildcard game next week. But 17 wins in a row is so impressive. A dominant September. I mean, this is just what St. Louis does. There's certain organizations where they just find it. Forever, St. Louis was a prominent playoff team, and they are again with Mike Schmidt. He's led this team back from the dead. San Diego took a nosedive. The Cincinnati Reds have fallen apart, and the Phillies couldn't catch them either. So an incredible story to win 17 games in a row. That's hard to do, but they're going to do it. And you look ahead, they play again against the Brewers tonight. So these games are really meaningless because they know they just got to wait and see where are we going. Are we going to San Francisco or are we going to Los Angeles? And San Francisco lost Brandon Belt, the first baseman, to a dislocated finger the other day. But they still find ways to win. They beat Arizona last night. They win that 6-4. The Dodgers won as well, but it's got to be frustrating for this division because the Giants tonight throw Alex Wood on the mound against Merrill Kelly. So Wood will look to get a win. Max Scherzer will pitch against Ryan Weathers. Scherzer's been dominant since coming to LA. But the Giants have 103-54. They're playing the Arizona Diamondbacks, who are 50-107. And I think now that with the Orioles' couple wins lately, yet the Arizona Diamondbacks have surpassed Baltimore as the worst team in baseball. So congrats to them. That's a company you really want to be in. But the Orioles have been surpassed as the worst team in baseball by the Arizona Diamondbacks. But the Giants and Dodgers, it's going to be a race to the weekend. For the Giants, you're playing weak teams, but you can't get complacent. You got to win these games because you do not want that wild card. The Dodgers as well. They have 101 wins, second most in baseball. But one of these teams is playing in the wild card game. And for the Dodgers, you'd feel comfortable, I think, because you got Kershaw, Scherzer, or Walker Buehler, the stud, or even throw Julio Urias in there, who leads Major League Baseball in wins. But anything can happen in one game. St. Louis veteran team, who's the hottest team in baseball right now, maybe you ride that wave into the playoffs where you don't lose again. I don't want that smoke, but somebody's going to get it. Somebody's playing the Cardinals. The Cardinals either going to Chavez Ravine or they're going to the Bay Area. We just got to wait and see. But this is what's so compelling right now about baseball. All these races in the last week, it's a slog. I'll admit, 162 of baseball is a slog because there's times where you're like, do it like the Cardinals. I didn't know they're going to be this good. It's hard to say. It's impossible to know. The Padres falling off a cliff are just crazy to me. I still think Fernando Tatis Jr. is a stud, but clearly their pitching needs work. Maybe they'll get better next year when Mike Clevenger's back from Tommy John. But Darvish fell off a cliff down the stretch after a great start. They have a lot of holes in that roster. So where do we go from here? The Cubs are rebuilding. The Nats are rebuilding. It's a wide open National League. We know one thing. The Dodgers are always good. But can the Braves keep it going? This playoffs is stacking up to be interesting because San Francisco is going to be that top seed. So they're going to play the wild card team. So that means that either San Francisco or Los Angeles will play the Cardinals or the opposing Los Angeles or San Francisco team in the first round. So it could be San Francisco, Los Angeles in the divisional series, which would be interesting. The two best teams in baseball, one of them will not make it to the NL Championship Series, which seems wrong to me because they're better than the other two. So we know it's going to be Milwaukee against Atlanta, or if Philly can come back, but it looks like Atlanta's in the driver's seat right now. So Milwaukee against Atlanta. See who goes to the NLCS. On the opposite side, it looks like the Tampa Bay Rays are going to get that top spot. They lost last night to the Astros, but the Astros are 5 games back with 5 games to play. So unless they win out, they do play the Rays this week. So we'll see what happens there. And I believe the White Sox do not have enough games left to catch them. The White Sox have 90 wins. So no, they cannot. So the Rays will play the wild card team while the White Sox and Astros will play each other in that ALDS. So that's where we stack up. But games tonight, you got Phillies, Braves on the mound. You have Max Fried against Aaron Nola. Fried's been great the second half of the season, so it bodes well for Atlanta there. Where with a win, they can nearly clinch the NL East. So that would be a big deal for them. Put Philly out of their misery, and Atlanta can prepare for next week with we're preparing for their matchup with the Milwaukee Brewers. For the Blue Jays tonight, I mentioned you got Barrios versus Garrett Cole, and then I mentioned the Mariners Athletics tonight. You got Logan Gilbert against Frankie Montez. So Seattle, they've made the playoffs in almost 20 years. Maybe it's their year. Maybe they can the pesky Orioles, who are terrible, make it interesting. Nathan Eovaldi, their best pitcher, will take the mound tonight. So we'll see what he can do in game 2 of the 3-game set against the Baltimore Orioles. So that's what's on tap for the MLB this evening. Monday night, we saw an NFC East matchup on Monday Night Football where the Dallas Cowboys had their home opener and they hosted the Philadelphia Eagles. And it was the first game that Dak Prescott has played at AT&T Stadium, or Jerry World as some people like to call it, since his gruesome injury last year, his ankle injury, where some people thought, would he be able to come back? We saw him before the game, an emotional guy. He loved being back in that stadium, and he played like it. And the Cowboys destroyed the Eagles on the surface 41-21. But I took more from this game. Number one, the Eagles are not very good, which I'll get to that in a minute in the Eagles. But just because you're playing a bad team doesn't mean you can't see really good things from the Dallas Cowboys. And over the last 5 years, the Dallas Cowboys have been at their best when they have a balance. Now, I think Dak Prescott is a top 5 to 8 quarterback in the NFL. But having balance does not mean you're not a great quarterback. I believe Baker Mayfield is an elite quarterback. But having Nick Chubb and having Kareem Hunt helps, and it helps him open up play action and just opens up your playbook. Well, the other night, you had between Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard, the Dallas Cowboys ran the ball 28 times for over 160 plus yards. Pretty good. You had Zeke carry the ball 17 times for 95 and two tubs. Pollard 11 carries for 60 yards. Pretty good day for both of them. And then you had 26 pass attempts from Dak, where he goes 21 for 26, 238, and 3 tubs. Balance. We're talking about balance here for the Cowboys. And I love to see it because they won this game after Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb only had 6 catches between them. They had 3 catches each. So 6 combined for the game. They're number 1 and number 2 receivers, and yet they won the game by 20 points. But this team just has balance. Now, they're going to have tougher opponents. But we've seen so far, look at their schedule. The Bucs, they take to the wire. Game-winning field goal at the buzzer. Good performance by Dallas in week 1. You beat the Chargers on the road. The Chargers are now 2-1, just beating the Kansas City Chiefs. Pretty impressive win, if you ask me. So that looks pretty good. And now their schedule gets pretty easy. If we look forward here, they got Carolina next week. Carolina's 3-0, but they're without Christian McCaffrey. They're without J.C. Horn. They're first round, eighth overall corner. Now, I think that game could be close, potentially, but I like Dallas to win that game because I just like their team. So I like that game. Then they play the Giants. The Giants they lost to Atlanta at home. The Giants scored 0 points in the fourth quarter. There's 0 points in the fourth quarter against Atlanta. Atlanta, whose defense is historically bad. You lose at home to Atlanta. I don't need to say more about the New York Giants. Just that's a win. So count that one. Then they play the Patriots. Patriots are okay. Who knows how they're going to look? They have a big game this weekend. They'll have a couple weeks to rebound from that. It's in New England. So as it gets colder, it gets tougher to play there. But I still like their chances of winning that game. So Cowboys, you could maybe pencil them in there. Then I think they might be on their bye on week 7. I don't see the name here, so they might not play. So they're on their bye in week 7. Week 8, they come back. They have the Vikings. Who knows? The Vikings can be a good team. I know they played the Chiefs in there, but I'm just making the point. They play the Broncos, but there's a lot of winnable games. And when you have a balanced team and you're playing well, you can beat anybody. That's just the truth. The Kansas City Chiefs on paper are the best team because they have the best quarterback. But what I've been saying is just because you have a great quarterback doesn't mean you're winning anything. Because you need a great offensive line. You need your defense to step up. You need players to make plays. And what happened in the past is that the defense of the Cowboys let them down. But when you draft well and you get good defensive players, it can change it. What do we see? Micah Parsons, linebacker out of Penn State. They draft him with the 11th pick. Dude looks like a stud. He's drafted a linebacker. He's playing defensive end now that DeMarcus Lawrence is out. And he can get to the passer. He's better than Randy Gregory or DeMarcus Lawrence at getting pressure on the quarterback. He was attacking Jalen Hurts the other night. He did it the same to Justin Herbert the week before. So he can play linebacker or DN. He's a versatile player. He's all over the field. Is he going to have rookie mistakes? You bet. But the kid can play. And then there's their second-year corner, Trayvon Diggs. He's the second Cowboys corner to have an interception in their first 3 games. That's impressive, including a pick 6 of Jalen Hurts the other night. So, and this defense leads the NFL in turnovers. They've taken the ball away from the opposition 8 times this year. That's an impressive statistic. 4 week 1 against the Bucs, 2-2. Now, before people get on me and say, well, oh, you're a Cowboy lover. The Cowboy, it's better for the NFL when the Cowboys are relevant. No doubt about it. ESPN, they love to talk themselves some Cowboys, and they'll do it for hours and hours and hours. But I can't ignore what's in front of me. Forever, the Dallas Cowboys, I've heard it a year ago. This is the year for the Dallas Cowboys. It never was the year. Now, I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl, but they are in a junk division. The Giants, I don't want to talk about them again because they don't deserve my breath. They're 0-3. They stink. They're no threat. The Eagles, they're all beat. They're hurt again. They always get hurt. Malata, their left tackle's hurt. Lane Johnson got hurt the other night. Their right tackle. They lost Brandon Brooks, the right guard. Fletcher Cox left the game. Brandon Graham, a great defensive end, tore his Achilles. So they're beat up. They're really beat up. And so that's a problem. I don't trust Jalen Hurts. My guy, Devontae Smith, hasn't looked great. He's getting pushed around on routes. I still think the kid can be a stud, but you look at the game the other night, Jalen Hurts throws 2 interceptions. They're both 10 out of 10 bad. First one, it's the first drive of the game for the Eagles after the Cowboys started with a score. Big play to Dallas Goedert for 38 yards. Then you go throw it under route to Jalen Reagor on the sideline. And then you go to the end zone, which I'm fine with, but he underthrows a ball so terribly. And Anthony Brown just has to sit there, put it in his breadbasket when he's on a route against Jalen Reagor. Terrible pass, just underthrown ball. You can't have it. And then the first drive to start the second half, he gets picked off by Trayvon Diggs after Devontae Smith fell. But, to defend Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts did not look off Devontae Smith. He did not look at his second reads. He just was staring at him the entire time. Trayvon Diggs read the play. It's in the house before we even know it. So I don't trust the Eagles at all. Jalen Hurts has not proven he can be an NFL quarterback yet. A starter week in, week out. So I have my doubts. And then there's the team that would, upsets me the most, in the Washington football team. Your defense is supposed to be good. You're bottom 5 in the NFL. The front 4 of Chase Young, who I love, but has been terrible thus far, taking stupid penalties, not getting sacks, offside. De'Aaron Payne, Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat. You guys have been junk. Josh Allen threw a picnic against you guys, and you guys could do nothing about it. So to me, barring significant change and injury, the Dallas Cowboys are going to cartwheel through the NFC East. They're going to shimmy and Michael Jackson moonwalk through this division. So that guarantees you a playoff spot. And with their schedule I just documented, maybe you get a home playoff game. That could be the difference between winning, going far and losing games. So I'm not saying that the Dallas Cowboys are Super Bowl contenders, but the NFC East, I believe the Rams are the best team right now. The Bucs are elite as well. They lost one game, but I'm not going to overreact to one loss. They lost with the team who I think is the best. I'd put the Cowboys third in my power rankings. The Cardinals are 3-0, but I trust the Cowboys more. I love D-Hop in Arizona. Kyler Murray, I said he's taking that next step. And this is a big game this week where they play the Rams. They can really make a statement and say, they'd be undefeated 4-0, beating the Rams who just beat the Bucs. That would be a big win. And actually the Cardinals and Cowboys do play each other later in the season. So in my NFC power rankings, I would have the Cowboys third right now. Cardinals fourth, and we'll see. Maybe with a win this week, they rise up. But in the past number of years, for Dallas, it's been what can go wrong will go wrong. And I just don't see a lot. My only worry, like I mentioned about the skip earlier, about the coach, is Mike McCarthy. Week 2 against the Chargers. He has a timeout that he can take with about 30 seconds, but no, let's the clock drip down. This is the second half, 30 seconds left in the game. Let's it bleed down to 4 seconds, calls a timeout. They could have ran another 1-2 plays in that instance, but no, doesn't call a timeout. So then he has to kick a 56-yard field goal to win. Zerline thankfully makes it to save his job, but he looks like an idiot when it comes to clock management. What the hell was that? Then this week, you're up 21-7. You're dominating the game. Should be 28-7 because they did that stupid review where Dak Prescott had a quarterback sneak. Review always gets to play wrong, even though they say they want to get it right. But again, that should have been a touchdown, but I won't dive into refs tonight because keep our sanity. But you have a minute left. You have timeouts. Call one after the Eagles, on third down can't get a play. Mike McCarthy doesn't call a timeout. Keeps letting the clock drip down, and they finally punt the ball, and there's no time to do anything. They just take a knee. Show some confidence to your offense. Get Dak and them back out that they might put up a field goal. The game's never over, especially if you have a half to play. You didn't know how the game was going to go. And the only reason he gets a pass from this is because they won by 20. You're not going to get that lucky all the time. You're lucky you beat the Chargers. Like I said, it saved your job that Greg Zuerlein put that kick through. You're lucky he likes you. He could have shanked that one, and you're you're gone the next day. But he doesn't call offensive plays. Kellen Moore does that. He does not make defensive signal calls. That's Dan Quinn. Your job is to call timeouts. You're not motivating. I watch Hard Knocks. You're about as motivating. You suck at motivational speeches. I would not want to play for you. Rah. You're not nowhere near Mike Tomlin. I'll tell you that. Go take a class with him about how to handle these situations, maybe. But you're laughable when it comes to motivating men. But you have one job. Know the time of the game. Be aware. Be engaged, maybe. But no, just punt. Just maybe. Do you want to win? You play sports to win. Cowboys are good. Don't worry about the run game. Two-headed monster. I don't worry about their quarterback. Worry about Amari Cooper a little bit on the road because he's been shoddy. But I do worry about Mike McCarthy. Jerry Jones I always worry about because he finds a way to screw it up. But to me, this is the best Cowboys roster they've had in a long time. Better in 2016 because Dak was a rookie, so was Zeke. They're more experienced now. They've been through the tough losses. Dak's making a ton of money. He's making $75 million this year for signing his contract and signing bonus. $75 million contract. Well, he's earned it so far. He's got to continue to do it. They have a test this weekend in Carolina. But to me, Dallas, better team. Dallas at home, they should win this game. But for all the Cowboy fans, you should feel good about your team because you're good. This is not just, you beat, this isn't a team where you go 3-0, but you played. I remember a few years ago, they started 3-0, but they beat the Dolphins when they were tanking for Tua. And then you beat Atlanta, and then you beat Washington, who were terrible. This isn't it. You played two legitimate teams and a divisional opponent, and you spanked them. So you can't ask for much of a better start for Dallas and what they've given us so far. Today, a familiar face, one of the great corners of the past decade, Richard Sherman, announced that he was starting his own podcast and that he would break the news of where he was going to sign. And Richard he's a colorful cat. Started his career in Seattle, where he was in the Legion of Boom with Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright and Cam Chancellor. And they won a Super Bowl, defeating the Denver Broncos. The next year, he was still playing there. They make it to the Super Bowl again. You remember the terrible call where they threw the ball at the 1-yard line. Malcolm Butler intercepts Russell Wilson instead of giving the ball to Marshawn Lynch. From then on, the relationship was not that great in Seattle. Earl Thomas left. KJ Wright is now in Vegas. Cam Chancellor retired, but Sherman went on to play in San Francisco. Had a second run, played college ball at Stanford, so close to home. Few good years there, made a Pro Bowl, made the Super Bowl, but he's had some injuries. They released him after last season, and he was kind of waiting to find the right fit. And he went back to Seattle. I visited there. I thought he may go back to San Francisco because they lost Jason Verrett in week 1. They signed Josh Norman. He left the game last week with a chest injury. They are weak in the secondary. They could use Richard Sherman back, even though he's a veteran and his best days are behind him. But he announced today that he is joining the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Joining Tom Brady, who Brady beat him in a Super Bowl. These guys have gone up in big matchups against each other, but they are now teammates. And this does make all the sense in the world. What is the biggest weakness of the Buccaneers right now? It would be their back end. Jamel Dean, Carlton Davis, Mike Edwards have not been strong to start the year. It's been a weakness for this team. Carlton Davis was chewed alive by Cooper Kupp this past week. Jamel Dean gets burnt. Ross Cockrell fits in well, but he's more of a replacement. You don't want him in on every play. Richard Sherman's a veteran. And again, he isn't that all-pro that he was in Seattle, but I still think he has game enough. He can stay healthy for these Bucs. He's an upgrade of what they have in their back end right now. He's not going to be a game breaker, but I like the addition because to me, you don't just sit on your hands and wait. You improve your team when you have the ability to. And that's what the Bucs are doing. The Bucs know we have Tom Brady. He's 44. We just won a Super Bowl last year. We see a weakness. Let's add to it. Let's improve it if we can. And that's what Jason Light has done. He got Gronk. He signed Antonio Brown. He brought over players Brady wanted, but you add to weaknesses, and Sherman to that secondary is a boost for this team. And I give the Bucs credit. They've done that all along. They've gotten better. And so now you have Richard Sherman returning to the NFL. And that's a good sign. I like the signing myself. I think he'll add something different. So we'll see what he can bring, but Richard Sherman is the new corner for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he'll be joining that team this week, and in all likelihood. Some more stories in the NFL. Of course, you got Tom Brady returning this weekend. That's always a big thought. We'll touch on a lot of football. Like I said, a lot of podcasts coming later in the week on football. James White was just announced about an hour ago, running back for the Patriots. Needs to have hip surgery. He's done for the season, so that's a loss for the Patriots in their running back room. Gerald Everett, the Seahawks tight end, was placed on the COVID-19 list, so he likely will miss their matchup this week against the San Francisco 49ers. So there's that. But I'll touch on that with Ben Murray tomorrow. We'll touch on a lot of different topics. The NBA, they've had their press conferences, training camps started up today with their first practices. We see with the Raptors, we see Scotty Barnes, their new pick, coming to town. They're back in Toronto this year, which is a good change of pace. But it's really been the stir of training camp has been the Philadelphia 76ers. And that would be that Ben Simmons, the three-time all-star point guard, has not reported to training camp. And the real reason is because the 76ers brass told him after last season, not directly but indirectly, that they don't want him anymore. Doc Rivers was asked after the Game 7 loss to Atlanta in the second round whether he thinks he can win a championship with Ben Simmons. And he just responded with, "I don't know." That can't be the answer. It can't be, "I don't know." Because, believe me, I love transparency. I love honesty. I appreciate that from Doc Rivers because I like interesting interviews. I like interesting answers, content that I can talk about here on the podcast, not moon mist answers, which you all know I hate. However, there are times when you're talking about a player and you could think, I just want to wring this guy's neck. He's been hot garbage. He's shooting 13% from the free throw line in this series. Ben Simmons, you could think, Doc Rivers, Ben Simmons has not attempted a shot in the fourth quarter in this series, 7-game series. These are all true. He's been a flat-out liability. He's afraid to go to the free throw line. He wouldn't dunk over 5'6" Trae Young. All true. Disaster. He can't shoot a jump shot and he's in year 6. Again, true. But in this moment, you gotta lie. It's a must-lie situation because now Ben Simmons heard the answer. Then Joel Embiid said after that Game 7, the game changed when Ben wouldn't dunk over Trae Young. So they're basically saying, we lost this series. We lost this game because of Ben Simmons. And you could make an argument that they did. He was terrible in this series. He's got some demons at the free throw line. He was running from it. They were hacking at Ben, putting him on the free throw line. He was a disaster. He's the opposite of Giannis Antetokounmpo, who is terrible from the free throw line as well, but he's not afraid to shoot an air ball. He's not afraid to hammer it off the rim and not even close. He just goes back up there and keeps shooting. Ben won't even put himself in that situation because he's afraid to do it. But 76ers say they want him back because he is so skilled. He can average 10 assists. He can be a triple-double guy like Russell Westbrook. He drives the basketball. He's one of the great passers in the game. He's a first-team all-defense type player, but he can't shoot. He still can't shoot. He won't shoot outside the paint. It's a problem. But they say they want him back. Embiid said, I'm upset he didn't show up, but we can run it back. We can do this. Ben Simmons saying, nope, I think me and Embiid's time playing together has run its course. I went on to Philadelphia. I'm not reporting to camp. So that's where we stand. And it's interesting because I believe there's a trade that makes a ton of sense. And this trade won't happen, mind you, but I'll still bring it up with you guys because I think it makes a lot of sense. I believe the Philadelphia 76ers should trade Ben Simmons to the Brooklyn Nets for Kyrie Irving. Straight up. Kyrie Irving, I wouldn't want Kyrie Irving, mind you, but Kyrie Irving is a very skilled guard, some of the best handles in the NBA, can shoot the lights out, but I'm just going to be honest, he's a pain in the ass. There's always something with Kyrie. Hates his teammates, or he has more personal problems or home matters than any person I've ever met. He has more home issues than a spouse getting beaten by their husband. Let's just be honest. The guy had to check out last year because he had to leave for a few days, and then we see him at his sister's birthday party getting drunk. And and then now he won't get vaccinated. And in the NBA, you don't get paid if you're not vaccinated. If you can't, like in New York, you cannot play sports if you're not vaccinated. So, I mean, he wouldn't be able to play any home games. And to this point, he's not been granted an exemption. Andrew Wiggins tried to get granted an exemption in the Bay Area. No. Certain states, you cannot play unless you're vaccinated. New York is one. The Bay Area, he wouldn't be able to play in Canada. So, he's got a lot of problems. But on Brooklyn, you have Kevin Durant, who is a walking, talking, you can get 40 points on 15 shots. He's that damn good. James Harden, again, a better shooter than Kyrie Irving. You can make an argument a better passer, too, better teammate. I know that for sure. So what does Ben Simmons do that these guys don't? Well, these guys can score, but Ben Simmons could be a facilitator. He could run the paint where you have three guys that will never go to the paint, but you got Simmons that can drive the ball, pass the ball out of the paint, and Kyrie Irving can go be a ball distributor, shoot the ball for Sixers with Embiid. I think it would work better, personally, because Embiid can still occupy the space, but he can come out to the three-point line when he wants. But in Philly, Simmons can't play in the paint because that's where Embiid is. He's a 7-foot monster. You can't have two guys down there and nobody up top to shoot. And I think he would work great in Brooklyn. Now, Kevin Durant, they said that was an option and that Brooklyn was interested in doing that trade, but Kevin Durant vetoed it because Kyrie is his best friend. But eventually you guys say, I want to win here. And I'd be intrigued by that option. But we'll see. But Ben Simmons to Golden State would be another team, the way they play and the way they're shaped. I think he would replace Draymond Green with Ben Simmons would be a big upgrade. Potentially Bradley Beal in Washington, but that swap, maybe that would work. But it's not a good scene right now. But for Ben Simmons, you can't shoot. You can't shoot free throws. If you really want to be moved from Philly, then don't be pissed when Elton Brand and Daryl Morey, the 76ers brass, come to you and say, yeah, you're going to Sacramento. We're getting Buddy Hield. We're getting Halliburton back. I don't want to hear any complaining about where you're going because you dug your own grave here. Your poor play has led to your shift. I still think he's a good NBA player. But what's a fundamental aspect of the sport? Shooting the basketball. He can't. That's a problem. Yes, you're a great passer. Yes, you can defend. Yes, okay. You can't shoot. You can't shoot the basketball. And maybe he's working on this also. I really hope he is because in past off seasons, I've really doubted that he has worked on it. It hasn't looked like he has at all. But we'll see. But it's an interesting storyline to see if he gets out of Philly, if he can improve his game. We'll see what happens there. But he's definitely on thin ice, and he wants out of Philly. And it looks like they're going to acquiesce that he's going to be out of Philly before we know it here. So we'll see what transpires for Ben Simmons as he looks to get out of Philly and move on and start his career elsewhere. But that's going to do it for today's podcast. We got a full slate of MLB games tonight. We got what else we got in the docket? Some preseason hockey. I'm sure all you Leafs fans are clamoring to watch that Leafs Ottawa Senators game that kicks off in around 20 minutes. So that's on the docket tonight. See what else? Other preseason. We got the Kraken. Mark Giordano is back in Calgary tonight. It's an interesting game for him as he gets back to Calgary, even though it's in a preseason. First time back for him. You got, Maple Leafs Senators tonight. That game, that'll be Nick Robertson in the lineup. Ooh, spicy. See if he can get some game going. He's been struggling. So we'll see if he can get something going. But yeah, preseason hockey. We got baseball this evening. We got Thursday night football tomorrow night, Jacksonville, Cincinnati, and just one of the more entertaining games in recent memory. Can't wait for that. Well, actually, it is a little more interesting than you think. You got the two former number one overall picks. We'll see if Trevor Lawrence can get his first win against Cincinnati. So I'll try to sell that game, even though it's not that high. It's not that great of a game. But great weekend of sports upcoming. Some great podcasts upcoming. Mentioned I'll be recording a few tomorrow and then another Friday and Saturday. So lots of content coming. You're ready to hear about some football. If you want to get in the betting world, want to hear some lines from Harrison. He's a betting expert, knows a lot about it, does it week in, week out on Sports Make Moolah. Tune into that. We'll record that Friday. So thank you guys all for tuning in tonight. Enjoy the games. Stay safe, stay healthy. And as always, we'll talk soon.